So maybe it's working. So you guys ready? Yeah, no, maybe.
I'm loading Management Studio.
Okay.
Right now.
I'm just going to put a couple comments. This will be for subqueries. And I'm going to show you a little bit about subqueries. Most of you have done, not all, but most of you have done joins before this, at least an inner join. Is that true?
Yeah, I got a bit hung up on the last question of this.
Well, there should be some, yeah. But subqueries are probably things you haven't done much of. But they are really useful for when you use them. And they are pretty much what they sound like. You're just creating queries inside of a query. So subqueries can exist in the where clause. They can also exist in the select clause. And they can, although this is actually what we'll do in the next assignment, they can also exist in the from clause. So you can create a query that is querying a query, right? And you can also select the result of a query for the select clause. And you can use a where clause as your query as your criteria. So I'm going to show you that. Some people find these more confusing than joins, but the principles are kind of the same. You still have to think about the relationship between tables and things. So you're in. Everybody in? Everybody okay?
Connecting to Management Studio. Almost there.
Almost, okay. Looks like you are there. Just do new query. So again, I'm going to do these with Community Assist. Is yours not connected?
Yeah, I won't.
What is the error?
It was.
It may be that it stopped. So do okay. So you match that. So right there, not where you were in this thing. Go to computer management. Takes it a moment to do services and applications, single server configuration, do single server services, for example, and right click on that and start, and then it should be okay. Anyone else have it stop? So it happens, as I say, the trick, I should put a little blog entry on it or something. If you find that you're getting errors that it can't find the server, right click on the Windows icon, choose Computer Management, Services and Applications, SQL Server configuration, and then restart the service. So I'm going to use Community Assist. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you, if you were to do, say, select max donation amount from, oops, I got to close the print, from donation, you can get the maximum donation, right? And so it's 12,150. But what if you wanted to know who did the donation? Right? There's no way. If I put, say, the person ID, we could do a join here, but I'm just going to. So it's a person key. So we could see the person. What'll happen? We'll have to group by. right? If I don't group by, there will be an error. And what does that do? It gives us every person's max, right? So you don't get to see the max one, you only get to see the max per person.
Per person key.
Yeah, per person key. So if a person donated 2 or 3 times, you'll get the highest donation they made in those 2 or 3 times. If you want to see the person key with the max donation, what you can do, in fact, we can get, I'm just going to go down and do a, let's do select. We could actually get a lot of things. So let's do donation date. And I'm just going to do person key. We could do a join to get the person. Donation amount. And then I'm going to do from donation. Where, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create this little subquery. Select max donation amount from donation. So this is one use of a subquery. Oh, where donation amount equals. Okay. So this is a subquery, and we're doing it in the where clause, right? This allows us to return all this information and still see the max amount, because we're going to say where the donation amount is equal to the maximum donation amount. Subqueries are like this, are in parentheses. They have a from clause as well. Even though these are both from the donation, this is a separate query that is matching. So if I do this, so it has the donation date, the person key, and then the amount. And that matches what we had the max before. Does that make sense? This is a question that there's no way to solve except with a subquery.
So subquery always goes at like the last clause.
No, I'm going to show you. You can put it in.
Does that work without person key and donation date in it?
Yes. But I mean, the main reason for not doing it like the first one is because you would want to see something like who did the donation.
Right.
And the date, so you couldn't return these if you didn't, or you could only return the max donation amount.
But I mean, if you removed, it just said select donation amount from donation or donation amount.
That would work, yeah.
Although it just display the maximum donation.
Right. It would be, if you did that, it would be the equivalent of this without the person key. And I would probably go this way because it's just less typing. So if you think about it, what this returns, this query, I mean, basically this is the query you can do just to get the max. So it returns 12150.55. And then when we're saying it, so we're looking for the donation amount that is equal to that number. One of them must be because it's the maximum. Couple of things about this. You can't put if you're going to use the equal sign, I'll show you, there's some other operators you can use, but if you're going to use an equal sign, this has to return a single value. It'll complain if there's more than one value that it could be. So things like sum, average, max, those work pretty well. But if it even thinks that there might be more than one possible answer, it'll throw an error on that.
What would happen if 2 people had the exact?
Well, actually, it would allow that because the max would be the same. Let's see if min. I think there might be more. Well, there's still only one.
I see why it would be more. both.
Yeah,
Because the person key and donation date would be unique.
yeah, but we could do like greater than, let's say greater than average. So it'd be ABG. And that should return multiple records. Return 13 rows that are higher than the average. The thing is that the average, if I run just this, the average is 1161, right? So it'll return, it's only returning a single value, but there could be multiple rows that are, are greater than. Does that make sense? All right. So, number 2, I want here. Let's do, I'll show you a different operator. As I said, if this will return, let's do select, person key, last name, that would be person last name. Person first name. And we'll do person email. And we'll do it from person, which I can't type. And then I'm going to say where person key, and this is one of those that's going to return more than one value. So if I said equals select person key from employee, all right, it's going to throw an error. SubQuery returned more than one value, right? This is not permitted. So you can't use any of these operators. You can't use equal, not equal, less than, greater than, or equal to. None of the comparative operators will work. But there is one that will. If I do in, right? So instead of saying equal to or greater than, if you want to match a set, you can use the in keyword. So if I run that, it's going to, basically what it's going to do is it's going to show me the person key and last name, first name, and email of everyone that's an employee. So what we're saying is that we want the person key and these fields from person, but only for those names where the person key is in the set of person keys that are in employee. Does that make sense?
Well, it says like you can't select more than one record, but didn't we just do that in the previous upload?
Well, no, because we did a greater than. This only returns a value. All of these are compared against that single value.
So does person key allow nulls?
No,
So everybody who has a person key that's popular is an employee?
no. So let's look at this and maybe we can look at that. So let's do, so only those person keys that are match the person keys in employee. So let's do a real quick, just select star from person.
Oh wait, but there's an employee key, isn't there?
There is an employee key. So when we do execute, these are all the people, and there's 129 rows. And then if we do select star from employee, then this is the person key, right? 5, 12, 18, 23. So that's a foreign key. So if we do just this, we get those keys. And we're saying if the person key in person matches one of these included. So it's matching sets, right? And to do that, you need the in keyword. Whereas this is when you're using a comparative operator, that subquery only returns a single value. It doesn't read, even though we get multiple rows in the response set, this subquery only returns a single value. But this one, when we use in, actually returns multiple values. Couple of things about this when you do this. It's really important that you're matching like to like, right? So we're saying that person key in this table is matched to the person key in this table. If I were to say employee key, it wouldn't throw an error, but I would get a different response, and it would be wrong. So let's do employee key. I'll change it back, but so here we're looking for apples and oranges. But because they're both integers, but notice these aren't the same people, and what it did is it just gave us keys are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gave us the people keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you could look at this and think you have the employees, but actually you don't.
Can you add employee key to the select statement so it displays the?
No, actually not with this. Or you could, but it makes it more complicated. Unlike an inner join, you can't return any fields directly from the subquery.
So what the in is meaning that the person key and the employee key are the same number?
No, they're not. They're not the same number. But when I did that, I just showed you that they're different people. There is a way to return the employee key, but it's sort of a pain. So
Well, just so I understand it, it is showing people who are employees
yes,
that have person keys.
yeah. In fact, this
So
will
everybody has a person key. Not everybody has an employee key.
that's right. Only 6 people have an employee key. One of the drawbacks of doing this kind, because you could get the same information through a join. You could do a join. And in a join, you can draw columns from the table, but with a subquery, you can't. I can't pull any columns from here to match the set.
Are there particular instances where the subquery makes more sense than just doing the inner join?
So there are some that are, I'll show you one in a moment with the, it's easier than an outer join. Sometimes, and this is something you could only test by running them over and over again with some of the analytics. Sometimes subqueries run more efficiently than a join. So if you might do subqueries if they were, if you were having some query problems, you might try a, just for efficiencies. There's also, I'm not sure why they would be more efficient, but I've read that they're more efficient. But if I were doing this, I would probably do it as a join so that I could pull out like their employee ID and their hire date, right? Which you really can't do here. Yeah. Did you have a question? Okay. Does it kind of make sense? As I said, a lot of times these seem a little more confusing than the joins, partially because you've never encountered them before, and partially they're. It's important to know that the subquery is essentially, for all of these except for the very last one I'll show you, is essentially independent of the rest of the statement, right? It's going to do its own thing and return a value or return a set. And then we can match. And in allows you to match a set. I will show you, in will also work like if I were to, I'm just going to copy this. And instead of a subquery in here, if I were to do just a series of numbers, let's say 5, it would also work. So it matched those numbers, right? So in works on any set, and the subquery can return a set.
So it's almost like, it seems as though that's almost like using an array instead of a variable.
Yes, and in fact, sometimes if you're trying to do, like you're trying to return a certain set of these, this is easier than saying where person key equals 2, or person key equals 4, or person key equals 5, or person key equals,
Yeah.
which is the other way you'd have to do that. Okay, just gonna say. So I'm gonna do one more. This is with it in this, with it here. So I'm going to do select. I might do 2 more actually, but so let's do select grant type name from grant type, and I'll say where grant type key not in select grant type key from grant. It's grant request, right? So this is like exactly like that outer join that we did. It'll have exactly the same result. It returns the 2 things that nobody's ever requested: the holiday and the funerary. So I actually find this easier than the left outer join syntax, or the right outer join syntax. But it does exactly the same thing. Does that make sense? It's returning the ones from the grant type that have no match in the grant request. So you can do not only in, but not in. Okay. Does it make sense, or are you confused? Yeah. So this will return a set of all the keys from grant type. So if I run this separately, it's kind of neat. You can just select inside and run it. See, it returns all these grant keys, which we could put a distinct in there, I suppose, just to keep it from being 81 rows.
Just out of curiosity, is grant a type of query? Because I noticed when I typed in grant, it highlighted it.
No. So if you type in, this is something we'll deal with later. Grant is granting.
Oh,
Create a user, and then you create a role, and you want to grant that role permissions. The grant is the keyword there. So let's do distinct here. And the only reason I'm doing that is so you can see more clearly. So if I run that, notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it goes 8, so 11 and 12 are. And then when I run it all together, it's the ones that are not in there. I could actually do, let's do grant type key as well. Then notice that it's 11 and 12 are exactly the ones that we're getting here, the ones that weren't in the grant requests. Smelling food already. So questions on that, or is that making sense? So one is the first, these are in the set, and this is just not in the set. So it's like an outer join. And again, you can get exactly the same results with an outer join. Let's do kind of a chain. I need to look at something. And again, these are queries I'm not sure I would ever necessarily do. So I want to look. So we got grant review. Has an employee key. I don't think grant request does. Okay. I just didn't know the relationships. You use this for you. I'm trying to remember. So I am going to do a chain ends, and I just want to show you. And again, this isn't something I really do. Let's do person key, kind of like we did before. Employee, or I mean, person last name, person first, maybe person email, person, raise this up a little, where person key, and I might indent this a little just to, well, actually, let's just do it this way. And then I'm going to say in, and then I'll do the subquery. Select person key from employee. And then I'm going to do another where. I'm going to just break that line. Where employee key in, and I'll start another subquery. Select employee key from grant review. So what we'll do is we'll get the names and emails of all of the all of the employees that did grant review. So there's a chain like the chips in so person key is a foreign key in employee, and employee key is a foreign key in grant review. So basically this is just chaining through those, and so there's 3 employees that have done grant reviews. Does that make sense? Again, you could do this with a join, and it might make more sense as a join. But I wanted to show you can do it this way as well. And that chain can go on as far as you can, right? As long as you're following the trail of relationships, it can go on. And again, it's the same thing as you would do in the on clause of the join. You just say what matches to what. Person key to person key, employee key to employee key. Does that make sense? Sort of. And again, this is, you wouldn't necessarily do this. If you have questions, let me know what doesn't make sense or what does. Because the next thing I'm going to do will surely confuse.
So basically, we're using this query to find all person keys from employee that are not in grant review.
No, we're looking for the ones that are in grant. We're looking for which employees did grant reviews.
Okay. So which people from the employee table are also in grant review?
Yeah, these are the ones that were in grant. You could do not if you wanted, if we did, and see which employees never did a grant review. Right, if you wanted to. So I'll do that real quickly just to do the opposite, and then we're going to move into a little bit different subquery. Where employee not in. So they're still employees because they're in per employee. But so remember we had 6 employees, so 3 were in the grant review and 3 aren't. Right. So it's either way. So these are all, I'm going to just put a start here, subqueries in the where clause. Right, these have all been in the where clause. They're part of the criteria. Now I'm going to do some subqueries in the select clause. Okay, so I'm going to do select. Actually, real quickly, I'm going to do a select star from grant request, and then I'll build out on it. I just need, this is for a quick reminder what the table looks like. So we have the grant request date, person key, grant type key, and the grant request amount, which is what I'm going to mostly play with. So first, I'm going to do something that we've already done. I'm just going to do select some, well, actually, let's select grant request, grant request type name, or it's grant type name, right?
Grant type.
Yeah. And then we'll do, I'm not going to do the explanation, so we'll do grant request and we'll do a sum of this. And I'm also going to do the date, but I'm only going to do the, we want the month or the year. Let's just do, we'll do both, year, grant, request, date. I'm going to break the line. And I'm also going to do the month. So my month is missing an H. Okay, and then I'm going to do this just from grant request. So this part is not, oh, and then I need to group by. Why is it not like these? Need to group by year. Well, actually, so what I need to group by is the, let's just copy it. Comma. Oh. Month. And I also need to do it by grant request type name.
I got an error.
Type name. Oh, you know what? I have to do an inner join too, don't I? I'm going to make, this is going to be complicated, but it'll look neat when it's done. And I will post it, of course. Maybe comment it. I need to inner join it with grant type on. And there's no subquery here yet, but we're going to add some. So grant type key equals grant request, grant type key. Now it should be happy. So what we get is this, right? For the year 2015, for the month 8, it goes through each of the things and gives you the total for that month for that particular. And there's only one in 2016, so I'm not sure if we need the year in there. Actually.
What's the thing you're going to use again?
I interjoined with grant type,
Yes.
and then grant type key to grant type key. That was just so I could have a name. Do we want to get rid of the year since there's only?
1 year.
Yeah,
That's 2 years.
there's one extra year. Whatever. I guess we can leave it. Or you could just, if you wanted to, get rid of the dates and just do the types for this, which might make it a little simpler. But I guess let's keep it. Now, what if you wanted to see the grand total in here? This is the total per thing. What if you wanted to see the total? Right? You can't do that because it has to be grouped by. But you can do it if you add a subquery. So what I'm going to do is right after total, I am going to do select sum grant request amount from grant request. All right. And that's a subquery, and then I can alias it as, let's do it as grand total. I don't actually need the as if you don't want. And what that does, if I run that with the subquery, notice these are all the same because it is the total. This is running independent, right, of where I did the other one. Where is it? Yeah, this one. This query is running independent of the rest, and it's returning a single value. In the select, it will also complain if it returns more than a single value. So now we have the total, and we have the grand total. And if you want, we could add another column and do the percent. I'm doing this because this is essentially what the assignment is, but it's difficult. So I wanted this one built out so you have an example to follow. So if I were to do a percent, I'm just going to do another comma there. How would I do that? You guys have any idea? So I'm going to do a sum grant request amount. And this one, because it's not part of a subquery, it's going to be grouped by, right? And I'm going to divide it by the subquery, which isn't grouped by. Because you get a percent by dividing the part by the whole. And if I want, I could do times 100 as percent. Percent is a keyword, so I'll put it in brackets. I might break this. I'm just trying to make it all on screen. Now it's getting complicated, obviously. And I could, so it gives me it gives me for every thing in there. It gives me the year, gives me the month, gives me the grant type name, gives me the total, gives me the grand total, and gives me what percent this total is of that grand total. Does that make sense? You're starting to get a decent summary report. Now, the only part the subqueries are doing, the grand total is not available because of the group by unless you do it as a subquery. And when you do the percent, you have to divide the part, which is the sum grant request amount that isn't part of a subquery, with the whole, which is a subquery. That can be confusing, but it is a nice, you get some nice results. Does that make sense at all? Now I could make this really uglier by formatting this. Which I may leave this one, and then I'll show you how to format it if you want to make it prettier. You know, like these, if you wanted to turn these into dollars and this into an actual percent.
So the percentage is a calculated field?
Yes, it is calculated. It's calculated by dividing sum grant request by select sum grant request amount from grant request, the part by the total. The times 100 is because it would return a decimal. Although if I format it as a percentage, it will, I need to get rid of that because it automatically, in the format, multiplies it by 100. You guys want it formatted?
It's okay.
Sure. When you do the assignment, you can probably leave it at this state. And it's very close to this. I'm just saying that because it's basically you're doing some calculations and you're adding in some. The only thing is that I think that you might have to cast something in the division, which I can help you do when you get there. But because I think they're integers, and if you divide integers, you lose all your decimal parts, right? So when you do the percentage, you always end up with 0 if you're dividing integers. Here it's not integers. I'm copying this. And what I'm going to do is the total. I'm going to do format. And then I'm going to do comma, quotes, $, pound, pound, comma, pound, 0.00, close quote, single quote, close parentheses. And the same here, format. Oh, this needs a beginning. No, that did. Okay, and then comma, and actually the same format. Two quotes there. And close the parentheses. All right, and then this one, and then comma, 0, single quotes, 0.00% sign. And I'm going to get rid of the times 100. Might make a space for the percent sign. What does that do? Let's see what happens. Okay, I don't know if that's any neater looking or not, but it has $sign. Yeah. What I don't know how to do, and I'm sure there is a way, is how to align the columns. You know, to make these like right aligned.
Yeah, too far.
And if I wanted a space between this and the $sign, I could just do that in the format. The format adds extra complexity, makes it even harder to read, but it makes for a nicer report. So that's the most complex thing we're going to do there, I think, pretty much. There's one other thing I need to show you, and then I'll be pretty well done with the subqueries. So there's a second assignment that kind of deals with subqueries. It's called table expressions. It's the next one, but it's subqueries in the from clause. So, which is a kind of a special case. Basically, you're querying a query. What questions do you have? Again, if the formatting confuses you, just skip it. Is the concept sort of clear? I'll try to write out an explanation in a paragraph about it.
It's a loose.
Guys are quiet. I don't know if that's good or just utter confusion or
Partial confusion.
partial confusion. So the very last thing I want to do is a coordinated subquery. If you ever apply for a job where SQL is the primary language, they may ask you a question to whiteboard a coordinated subquery. Coordinated subqueries are a lot like a what is the word for a function that calls itself in programming? Recursive. It's a lot like a recursive function. It's where the inner subquery depends on the outer subquery. The other thing, just like recursive function in other programming languages, it's always advised that if you can avoid them, you should, because they take a lot of processing power. But sometimes they're the only way to really do something. As I was going through here, this is a little bit different than what I usually do. Where we do one of these I thought would make a good recursive. Wasn't the first one. Oh, maybe the grant type. All right. So I'm going to do and I think I'm just going to do the keys to keep this simpler. Select grant type key. How do I want to do it? Let's do the average grant type amount. So I'm going to say from grant request. And I'll just do this as average from grant request. And I'm going to call it, I'm going to alias it. It's actually important that you alias this one. So I'm going to say where grant type key. Is that what I want to do? I'm trying to remember. These are hard for me too. I'm going to do this as GR2. It may not allow me to do the average.
What's GR1 and GR2?
These are aliasing. Grant request to.
House clause?
No, you never need an as class. It's always optional. Where, so it may not be the average that I can do, but I'm trying to think of how. So let's do where G2 grant type key. I may have to go look this up if this doesn't work. Equals G1 dot grant type key. So the average isn't going to, oh, GR1, GR2, GR1, 2, 1. But the average is probably not good. I want to average the types. And I don't want to group by because that actually would have give me what I want already. Trying to think. So, but if I group by, see that doesn't. Let's just do. The idea of this is that you want to make things work. You want to make sure that it's not comparing apples and oranges, that it's not averaging across grant types. I'm not sure that this is going to work though. So let's go look at
I got a syntax error.
yeah, there's errors in it right now, I know. I'm going to go to ITC. I think is it actually Conger ITC? Yeah. I'm going to say coordinated subquery. I want to do it right, and I think I'm confusing it. I thought I could do it off the top of my head. No post doing that, so let's just do subqueries. All right. That's old, though. It might be better to just go.
Only 2011.
Let's do 2016. November. Correlate corrected code, SQL requirements. Link to simple notepad. All right, so let's do October. Actually, it would be the earlier quarter would be this one, and it would be January or February. Set operators, so it must have been in January. Subqueries, okay. And the correlated subquery is similar to, oh, I see, where it's greater than the average. I'm just going to copy this though and talk through it. I knew the average was in there somewhere. So I'm going to just paste over this. So we want, in this case, we want to see where the grant request amount is greater than the average request amount, right? But we want to make sure that we're not comparing apples to oranges. So we want to make sure that the grant type key in the outer query matches the grant type key in the inner query, right? So food is matched to food. That's number one. Each type is matched to its own type. You don't want the average because like rent is a much bigger thing than food for the amounts. So you want to make sure you're matching rent to rent and food to food and things like that. And this is what this allows you to do. The reason it's a correlated subquery is that this refers to the outer query, right? So the inner query has a reference to the outer query. Does that make sense? Let's run it and then I'll talk about it. Why is that an error? Did I forget to cover something?
We need to close the bracket.
What?
We need to close the bracket.
I need to close the, oh, I need to close the, I didn't copy the last parentheses. All right, so these are the requests that are greater than the average. And one way to know that, so for one, I have 3 of them. Let's say what the average, select average grant request amount from grant request, where grant type key equals 1. If I run that, the average grant request is 128.46. When I run this, all right, so this is 128.50, so it's slightly ahead of it, but these are all bigger than the average, right? If I do it for type 2, there's 850. I think 2 is rent. It's 658 is the average, right? So if I run this, all of these are greater than 658. And in 3, these are all 250s and 300. There's a lot of 3s that are above average. So if I do 3 just to see what the average is, it's 220. So these are all bigger than the 220, and etc. Right? So we're not comparing apples to oranges. If I just did without this correlated subquery, if I just did, well, let me do like this, and then get rid of the GR1. I would get a very different response. So I get a bunch of things, but that's because they're all greater than the average request amount, which is 319. But it's not, it's comparing rent to food, it's comparing, you know, it's not doing the same thing at all. This is carefully comparing 1s with 1s, 2s with 2s, 3s with 3s, etc. These are a little confusing too, as you can tell, because I struggled thinking about it for a minute. But actually, sometimes like this, where you're trying to compare things against an average and there are different types, this may be the only way to actually get a reasonable response. Does that make sense? That's it for this, actually, for the subqueries. What I will do is I'll go through and try to comment it a little bit thoroughly, especially that really confusing one. And I'll post it in the next few minutes. And if you need any help, let me know. But you have about an hour if you want to work. So I'm going to comment this and then I'll post it on the blog.
Steve.
Yeah.
I had to restart my virtual machine, and now
Sure.
I can't get the SQL server to come up. It's saying that it's not working. Where do we go to fix that again?
So go to the, right click on the Windows Start. So this one.
Oh. Right click on
Right
it.
click on it. And then choose computer management.
Hey, yeah.
Fix it.
Yeah.
Name out services and applications. SQL Server. And SQL Server services at top. Okay, yeah, so right click on that and restart. Give it a second, you should be okay.
Thank you.
For the
Yeah.
assignment on the join, I got stuck on the second to last one.
Okay. So you choose the last one you're doing, select position name.
Yes, this one.
Oh, so it's an outer join, right, where you're doing,
That's,
and you did that. So let's see, select position name from employee position, left outer join position, on employee position key equals position key,
this last part I was just
where,
trying.
position key. Yeah, so do it as where employee position key is not. Because that's where they would not have been assigned. And I think that should work. Or actually, just make it a single, where employee position, that position. And where's the now, like,
That's right.
oh, you didn't copy it.
That happened several times yesterday.
So there should be one position that's,
See, that's,
select position name from employee position. Actually, select it from position. Well, so do position name. So if you're going to leave it as is, you can make it a right outer join. It's position that you want to. That might be easier than adjusting it. So it should return one position. Yes. The reason why right is that the one that you want to bring everything back from is the position table. It has the list of all positions.
oh,
Employee position has the list of all the positions that are actually assigned.
okay.
And nobody was ever assigned as a detail.
I think a bus company would want one of those.
Yeah, they probably would. as I said, it's not
Although looking at
particularly.
some of the Seattle buses. I'm
They
thinking
can
some of-
be, yeah. I'm not sure how often they get cleaned.
Although they were looking at changing their style of fares,
Oh,
and it's like neither of them are favorable. Both require a pay increase.
oh yeah.
Like, you guys aren't worth it yet. Keep trying. In my personal opinion.
That was probably the instruction.
Okay. I think the